Well, Dark, I guess you're going to be making a habit out of producing hayseed commentary about biblical accounts, huh? Yeah, I figured. I guess it does get kind of tiresome going problem of evil 500 different ways. Especially when going to the next stage with authors like Plantinga is so far above your head. Let's start with this really simple screw-up where you complain about God sending angels to Sodom and Gomorrah, and then whine about it being contrary to omnipresence. I see once again you're getting your exegetical competencies from a box of Lucky Charms. What you fail to grasp here is that the word outcry is a technical legal term for a cry for help from a great injustice. In ancient Near Eastern jurisprudence, the judge would have to be present in order to make a judgment. And by that I mean a visible, tangible presence. So what God was saying was that he would exercise the role of an ancient judge. Also, the word for know in this passage has a broad semantic range. It can also mean to recognize or consider, and doesn't imply a previous lack of knowledge automatically. The bottom line is that a judicial context governs interpretation of these words. It doesn't have anything to do one way or the other with omnipresence or omniscience, okay? Sheesh. Alright, second point, and here you'll get half credit because you're right on one matter. This back and forth between God and Abraham on the matter of how many righteous people were in those cities does reflect a classic ancient Near Eastern bartering conversation, like you'd have in the marketplace back then. That much you have right, but you'd be wrong to think it was exclusive to marketplaces. The fact of the matter is, conversations between a master like God and a servant like Abraham frequently took on a dialectical approach like this one. In situations like this, a master would even pretend to be ignorant in order to allow the servant to request intercession, and so properly establish the relationship between them. But seriously now, you put in your little bug's mouth here the words, "Did you honestly think the original Jew wouldn't know how to drive a hard bargain?" Good grief, that's real classy, Dark. No, it's not. It's more racist claptrap. I've had to correct you for being a bigot before, and I'll do it again here. Last time I told you that calling Jews desert people was something the Nazis did as a way to denigrate and insult the Jews. You may not have been aware of that one, but how can you honestly not be aware that the depiction of Jews as bargainers wasn't part of the package of anti-Semitism? Seriously? Come on. Alright, now we get to what I expect you thought was the juiciest part of the story given your perverse anti-historical perspective. Let me make this very simple, and you better sit down. The men of Sodom were not practicing homosexuals. Yes, that's what I said. Pick yourself up off the floor and listen carefully. What you don't get here is that homosexual rape was perceived as an act of dominance. I'm sure you've heard it said even today that rape is not a crime of sex but of power. Well, in this case, more so. The point here was to show these visitors who is in charge and destroy their personal honor. So while I'm sure you are enjoying all the rectal jokes, you missed the point because your grasp of the cultural context comes off a bag of Cheetos. Now, in further light of that, here's how you also failed to grasp the point of Lot offering his virgin daughters. Like I said, the whole point here was dominance, not sex. Now, as I've told you only about 400 times now, this was a society based on honor. To the men of Sodom, raping the visitors was a way to shame them and gain honor for themselves in their own eyes. But yo, Dark, here's the clue. There wasn't any honor in raping virgin girls whatsoever. This was the equivalent to the men of Sodom demanding to fight John Wayne, and Lot saying, "Nah, you don't want to do that. Here, fight Pee Wee Herman instead." There's nothing here of Lot literally offering his daughters for sex. It's a calculated insult to the men of Sodom. Got it? Good. Oh, another clue for you, Dark. You're screwing up by thinking there's some issue with Lot's potential sons-in-law not being of the men of Sodom. The specific word used for men in the phrase men of the city is this one. It's one of several translated men, but this particular one has a specific connotation which refers to men of somewhat upper class. In other words, you might say in this case, the elders of the city of Sodom. Not all the men. Capiche? Oh, Just briefly, Dark, go look up the word genocide. It means the deliberate killing of someone solely because of their indelible group membership. In other words, this would be genocide only if these people were being killed for being of a particular social, racial, or national group, not because of some judgment over sin. Try to keep up. Now, you make a pretty big deal here about all the problems Lot would have making his daughters pregnant. Well, I don't know about that. The oldest fathers on record are in their 80s and 90s. As for the connection between alcohol and erectile dysfunction, yeah, that's true. But here's a few things you need to check. Lot would have enjoyed the traditional Mediterranean diet, and I'll quote this article here. Recent studies show that ED is relatively uncommon among men who eat a traditional Mediterranean diet, which includes fruits, vegetables, whole grains, heart-healthy fats including nuts, and olive oil, fish, and wine, particularly red. And then this part. There is no evidence that mild or even moderate alcohol consumption is bad for erectile function, but chronic heavy drinking can cause liver damage, nerve damage, and other conditions, such as interfering with the normal balance of male sex hormone levels that can lead to ED. Now, Dark, Lot was drunk just once here as far as we know. You got any evidence for chronic heavy drinking on his part? I didn't think so. Nice try. I found plenty of other information, and it suggests that while being drunk can cause ED, it's not a definite thing. So I think you better take basic sex ed again, then move on to qualified medical journals after you grow up. Oh, another issue. In addition, between various medical factors, there's actually a pretty significant window within which a woman can get pregnant. So it's not quite as out of the question for Lot's 2 daughters to get pregnant by him as you're implying. Still, we don't even need to go there in the first place, because there's a far more likely literary explanation. You need to go watch my series on the oral tradition background of the Bible. Basically, we can see in this portion a roughly dechronologized narrative, one in which events are compressed in time in order to make it far easier to remember the story. I know you're used to reading the text like a fundamentalist. Don't do that, okay? One last thing. I gotta wonder how much you actually know these stories after this part. You're having Abraham meet Lot for the first time here. Dark, check back in Genesis 11:31. Lot is Abraham's nephew, and they have an extended conversation in Genesis 13. So do us all a favor. Instead of going to crap like the Bible Reloaded for information, try a few scholarly commentaries, okay?
Do you mind cutting it with the scholarship stuff? I'm trying to think of some more rear-end jokes.
I should know better than to disturb him when he's devoting that much brain power to anything.